I I've been blessed with a very, very competitive nature. Um, Extremely competitive, almost detrimental to people's health and my health. I don't know why. Some people are way more competitive than others, but I'm extremely competitive. And, you know, part of competition is evaluating yourself compared to someone else. You know, and there are a lot of times where you look at that evaluation and you don't have enough information to evaluate correctly. So you can lose and you don't have the whole story. Or you can win and you don't have the whole story. And so you can make decisions. Oh, wow, I'm so great, until you meet the next guy who's way better than you were, or whatever. You know, the bottom line is it's easy to receive messages about who you are when you're very competitive. And every time you lose, you can receive a message, man, I am worthless. When you're playing something that is really meaningless most of the time. I was playing with my brother-in-law. I was playing some games before I came here this afternoon. We were doing pretty well. I get pretty competitive. And it was good. We were enjoying ourselves. And we were playing online against someone else. And we lost by 1 point. This guy jumped and had a rocket, and he shot it, and it kind of hurt me a little bit, and I was shooting him like crazy. And I landed like right in front of him, and I was about to like swing and beat him down. And I did swing, and I missed him, and his friend came up from behind and shot me, and I died. And it was really annoying, because, I mean, I was so close to just nailing this guy. And if I had, we would have won 25-24. Instead, we lost 25-24. And as soon as it's over, you get to hear briefly if you want to talk to each other. It's usually really an edifying time. No, it's not edifying ever. And the guy says, wow, you guys suck, and then he leaves. And I'm thinking to myself, what? You barely beat us. What does this even mean? And I'm just thinking, what poison we can spill out of our mouths. Now, I'm being very competitive, was quite upset when he said this. But then I have to remember that I probably say stupid things like that too when I'm just beating people. And the whole story, you know, half the game I'm dealing with my kid. The other half, people are walking in front of me, you know. I'm dealing with a lot of stuff. And they don't know that. And I don't know what they might be dealing with. So it's this artificial way of judging one another. Well, that is just an example of what happens so often day to day in our relationships. I can come back from work feeling like I've been kicked in the stomach by my boss or by my coworkers. Or maybe something really traumatic happened and I saw it. Or maybe I just got some really bad news. And I can come home and someone can say something to me and I can just react and shoot something out of him. Or I can be really short with somebody. And not realize what damage that does to someone else. And they don't realize the damage that's been done to me. So they just see me as this, wow, Caleb is just a really angry person who just doesn't like people. And that's true. No, that's not true. So what happens is we can make judgments like this based on bad information. And we have to be very careful about the things we say and the things that we hear, because a lot of times we're walking around broken, doing broken things. And we have to learn to be understanding of one another. We have to learn to be willing to try and get the whole story. This morning I was at work and I was really frustrated because I kept going by the coffee station, and I kept refilling it, and I kept getting called away to go on van runs, and I kept getting back from the van run, and I would go, and it would still need a lot of attention. And I was frustrated because at the desk were two people, and one of them seemed to me to be doing nothing but talking to the other person. I was like, hello! Open your eyes! Do something about this. I was really getting frustrated. And, you know, I talked to my wife about, man, I'm so frustrated by this person. She's blah, 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 blah. And then I had the opportunity to talk to her later, and she came up to me and she says, read this over for me and tell me what you think of it. And she was standing there writing down all the guests' complaints about, you know, what had happened at the hotel. So she actually was doing something. It looked to me like she was just kind of doing nonsense in this little notepad. And so I kind of felt bad about how I had felt earlier about that. But what had I done? I had already spread information about her that was inaccurate. Just something we can all do very easily. How many of you have had someone spread information about you that's been inaccurate? Yeah, it hurts, especially when you find out about it. And how many of you have spread information about someone else that's probably inaccurate? Yeah. So it goes both ways, but somehow what happens to us, it's like this huge, horrible thing. But when we do it, oh, well, come on, how could I not? I mean, I didn't know, and what are you doing? So it's easy for us to make excuses and not realize that the bottom line is misinformation hurts. The comments we make about other people hurt. Our words have power. Reputation carries weight. These things are significant. And they're significant because all of us, like I said in my prayer, are in equal need of that loving relationship with Jesus Christ. And somehow we can get through so many days, instead of helping one another get there through encouragement, we live off of discouragement. We're discouraged, and so we discourage other people. And sometimes we don't really realize how badly each one of us needs someone to say, let's pray for you. Someone to say, you know what, you have what it takes. You're going to be okay. I was watching the show last night. How many of you have seen the show Glee? Yeah, I wouldn't admit it either, people, but I know all of you watch it. Okay. I wouldn't watch it except I live in a house with a woman, and she likes to watch Glee. And it's okay. It's pretty fun. I mean, I might have to hand over my man card for saying this, but it's a decent show. It's kind of funny and silly, and they sing really silly songs sometimes and really interesting songs sometimes. Anyway, there's a character on Glee who is a homosexual. And I was watching the show with my friend, and he has never seen the show before. And as soon as the homosexual comes on, he's like, that's you. And he doesn't know he's gay. And I'm like, that's you! And I'm like, and the homosexual is walking next to a black woman, and he's a big burly man. I'm like, oh yeah, well you're the black woman then. Well, I had having kind of a hard time, so I felt really frustrated that he said, that homo guy is you. I was like, whoa, dude! I'm going to take you outside and beat you for that comment. So I lashed out at him. Now, was he trying to be antagonistic? Was he trying to hurt my feelings? Absolutely not. He was just trying to have fun. And he didn't really understand the show, so he didn't even know what he was actually trying to say. I guess for some reason, he just wanted to pick that guy out. Maybe it was the enemy. You never know. The enemy plays on our emotions. The enemy toys with our minds a lot. And when we are walking around feeling like, everything is normal and cool, and for some reason I really feel like saying this mean thing about this other person, sometimes that doesn't just come out of us naturally. Sometimes that's put there by the enemy. And I don't know if, Satan was sitting on my friend's shoulder saying, tell him he's the gay guy, because he doesn't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if that thought crossed his mind, because the enemy knew that would bother me. I wonder how many times we say things not really realizing how much they bother other people. I realized the other day that I say a lot of things carelessly that really legitimately bother other people, and I didn't know that. And if I had known that, I would have been a lot more careful with the words I spoke. The problem is we don't always have the luxury of that person telling us, you hurt my feelings. Because that is very embarrassing. It makes you look weak. And you don't want to just go, oh, that hurt my feelings. And then you get teased. Well, you're just a girl. I'm sorry, girl. That hurt my feelings if you're a girl. Well, is it that time again? There are lots of different things that you don't want to do because you're embarrassed. It's hard to say, I got my feelings hurt when you said I was that gay guy. What are you doing? That hurts me. Sometimes it's a lot easier if we find a way to do that. Sometimes it's a lot easier if we find a place to go when our feelings are hurt. Now, if you're in a good relationship with each other, then some of you have the freedom and the right to go up to one another and say, you know what, bro, when you did that stung a little, man. Please don't do that again. Don't tease me that way. And then you work that out in your relationship. But a lot of times you don't know people well enough to do that. And they just come by. Like the guy that yells at me on Halo. Like, am I ever going to see this guy again? No. Can I file a complaint and try and get him kicked off? Absolutely. I would never do that. That's just bitter. Anyway, so the bottom line is, There are people that you can't necessarily work things out with. You just take it and it hurts. What do you do with that? What do you do with that pain? A lot of us walk around broken, not because some big dramatic thing happened, but because a lot of little things that weren't that dramatic happened. I remember when I was going to WNS, I talked about this a lot. It wasn't this huge thing that happened that made living there so awful. It was just this day in and day out series of stupid little comments that people would make that would drive me crazy. You know, a lot of people don't just decide in one day that they need to take their own life. A lot of people don't just decide in one day that they're going to go shoot up a school. A lot of people don't make their decisions based on one day, based on one action. It's a series of cumulative events. And what you have to realize is, where are you going to fall in that series of cumulative events? Are you going to be pushing someone or pulling someone back? Because whether we like it or not, we have that ability and that power and that influence. We've been talking a lot about transition and stuff. We're broken people. I was lying on bed I was lying in my bed the other day, and I was looking at my fan, and all of a sudden this feeling came over me. I am a wretched sinner with nothing to offer God. But for some reason, it wasn't a discouraging feeling. It was a feeling of utter and complete relief. Because when I acknowledged that, I finally realized, finally for the 7,000th time, which is how we live as Christians, right? We just keep realizing things over and over again. Then we forget them. Then God reminds us through pain sometimes what we need to be remembering. I was really discouraged. I laid down and I felt like, man, I have nothing to offer. But what it made me think, the very next thought out of my brain was, I'm so grateful that God loves me anyway. I'm a wretched, awful sinner, and I have nothing that I can offer you, God. Why do you love me? Well, it's enough that you do. And it just took all of the pressure and the weight off, because I could look at God and say, you know who I am. I know who you are somewhat, as much as I possibly can, as much as you let me know. And this is a pretty good deal. I don't have to make believe with you. You can tell me, man, I love you. And I can say, thank you. And I can say, but you know about all this other stuff, right? And he's like, yeah, but I still love you. And it helps me deal with all the other comments that I have to deal with all day long from people I don't know or do know. And then it helps me when I have to deal with people who I do know very well who are saying things that are just eating my lunch, ripping me to shreds. You know, one of the things that Planet Wisdom really impressed upon me when they were talking about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ was that if Jesus Christ, who with just a blink of his eye, with just a wee little bit of a thought that glances through his mind, has the power and the ability to completely annihilate or torture or do whatever he wants to anybody, can allow a soldier to take his hand and drive a stake through it, that's bad. Like if someone's going to drive a stake through my hand, that's really going to kind of put me out. I might have a bad day if that happens. But if somebody is going to come up to me and say, you think you're the Son of God, and punch me in the face repeatedly, that's going to start bringing up a lot more emotion in me. And then if they're going to spit on me, I don't know. Getting spit on is really annoying. Like when I was growing up in high school, like people would spit on me and it would like, you need to run away from me now because there's nothing I hate more than someone spitting on me. And this guy has people just spitting in his face, and a lot of you can't appreciate. I actually hope none of you can appreciate this. But having someone rip hair out of your body, like that's going to stink. Like some of you may have had hair ripped out of your head, but out of your face has got to be way worse because it's way more sensitive. Jason Martin, would you like to come up here for a demonstration? No? Okay. He doesn't want to come up for a demonstration. But what I'm saying is these things are humiliating. Like literally humiliating. You're naked, you're on the cross, you're beaten, bruised, and battered by people, and you don't have to take it. You don't have to let this happen. But you chose to do it for someone like me who doesn't deserve that. Okay? Well, now I'm looking at all of you, and I'm like, I'm a lot closer to all of you than I am to him. And if you're going to come and tell me things, if you're going to come and insult me, and I value my relationship with you, I can take that. Why? Because he took it, and he didn't deserve it. Why? Because he loved us. If I love my friend, I can take it. I can take a bit of humiliation. And lately I have taken, in my opinion, some humiliation from my friends because I'm willing to say, you know what, I love you. Because you're going to go to your friends sometimes and you're going to say, you know, I'm really sorry that I hurt you. And they'll be like, oh, that didn't hurt. I'm fine. I'm good. And you're like, you look great, actually, yeah. What? I'm good. And that's pride. They don't want to show you that they're hurting. They don't want to let you know that you had an impact on them. So they're like weeping in a sob of, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm good. Yeah, well, I'd hate to see you when you're not doing well, because right now you look like you're an inch from death. So what I'm saying is, sometimes it's going to be kind of humiliating. You're going to go to people and you're going to be like, I know that I hurt you and I'm sorry. And they're going to be like, well, you know, or they're going to blow you off. They're not going to care right away. And it's going to make you want to be like, okay, well, forget you and walk away. You have a decision to make. You're going to walk away or you're going to stay. Sometimes resolution and peacemaking is really, really tough. Really, really tough. And it requires you remembering, wait, if Jesus Christ could do this for me, like he could have taken those guards and been like, okay, I'm done. BAM! And they're gone. Like their dust will never be seen again. Their souls obliterated. Like he could do that. But he didn't. He said, okay, I can take it. He can take it. His spirit lives within you. You can take it. Why? Why can he take it? Why can we take it? Well, he knew who he was. And the higher can always stoop down to the lower. Be the bigger person. Sometimes it sounds cliche. Like I could write a Hallmark card right now. Be the bigger person, because then you'll be something that rhymes with person, or whatever. But the bottom line is, Jesus Christ, because he was God and man, and because he knew who his dad was, because he knew where he came from, he could handle it. Because his self-worth wasn't determined by those guards nailing him on the tree. It wasn't determined when people said, you are a liar. You are the devil. That didn't tell him who he was. He knew who he was, so he could handle it. He could handle it. What keeps us from going to that place is because a lot of times, if we're really honest with ourselves, we can't handle it. It's too hard. We own too much stuff that's said to us. Why am I sitting there struggling when he's like, you're that guy? And I'm like, that's the gay guy. Like, I know I'm not gay. I'm not going to own this. I'm not going to let this tell me who I am. But yet it makes me angry. Because Jesus Christ was called a friend of tax collectors and this guy who just hung out with prostitutes all the time, did that make him a bad guy? Does your reputation define you? It doesn't define you. It does not define you. What defines you is what God says about you. And at the end of the world, you're going to be standing before God, and everyone your whole life could have told you you were worthless. But if the God of heaven and earth says, you made it, I died for you, you're not worthless, then it really doesn't matter what they've been telling you your whole life. Because what he says is the only thing that matters. And what's so hard for us is to hear that. And that's why it's so important that we stand in the gap. You know, when Jesus said, you'll be my hands and my feet, you will go to the ends of the earth, he meant sometimes, Caleb, you're going to say to someone, you're not worthless. You have what it takes. I am so proud of you. And they're going to listen to you, and what they're going to hear is you saying that. But what they're really going to hear, Caleb, is they're going to hear me saying that to them. Because if you say it, it doesn't have authority. But if I say it, it's true. And when Jesus Christ looks at you and says, you are worth something, I am proud of you, you have what it takes, you are forgiven, it means something because it's true. You can take it to the bank. We are broken people. You know, I love this song by Rich Mullins. One of the lines in it is, when my body lies in the ruins of all the lies that nearly ruined me, will you pick up the pieces that are pure and true and breathe new life into them and set them free? And sometimes I look at my life and I feel like, man, I just feel like there's so much of me that's just lying in the ruins of the lies that have nearly ruined me, lies that I've believed, lies that have been spoken about me. And I need God to pick up the pieces that he knows are pure and true. That when everyone is saying about his son, wow, your son is just this glutton and this drunkard, that his son can look at the father and say, you know I'm not, and that's enough for me. I don't know what you let define you. I really hope it's not a game that you're really good at. I really hope it's not what other people say about you. I even hope it's not all the accomplishments that you feel like you've done in your own strength. That can be just as dangerous. In that same episode of Glee, they were talking about identity. It was Tuesday's episode for anyone who's seen it. They were talking about identity. And he said, I want you to pick a song that reflects you. And I thought that was interesting. And the part of it that was interesting was there's one of the lead characters in that show is a woman who has defined herself by her voice. She says, I am my voice. She gets tonsillitis, and she needs to have her tonsils removed, unless she, by some random miracle in the show, doesn't have to have it removed, which happened, by the way. Not to ruin it for all of you. Well, I know we're planning on watching it tonight when you got home. But, yeah, right. Sorry. By the way, you're no, just kidding. So, she's struggling with her identity. And what was really cool is one of the other characters in the show says, okay, well, I want to take you to meet my friend. Okay. So she goes with him to meet his friend, and his friend was a really awesome quarterback, football player at another school. And she goes in, and he's lying down on his bed. He's like, yeah, what happened? Well, it was the third game of the season, and a linebacker broke through, and he got me. And everything in me, when I fell down, was screaming, get up, but my body wasn't responding. Just like that, I was a quadriplegic. Just like that, everything I'd used to define who I was the quarterback. I was popular. This is who I am. This is where I'm going. It was taken from me in a second. And now I'm confined to this bed for the rest of my life. I can't move my arms, can't move my legs. I have to have people assist me in everything I do. And it sucked. And everyone was so excited when they got me this chair. Woo, look at the chair! Because I could move it with my mouth. And everyone was around, and I was just moving the chair around and making them happy. And as soon as they all left, I drove the chair into the swimming pool. So I wanted to die. Because everything I was gone. I don't want to live anymore. I said, how did you get past that? How do you get past the things that you have used to define yourself? Who are you? What do you say, what do you let tell you who you are? Is it because you're really good at something? Because of who your parents are? Because of what people say about you? Because you're a senior and you're graduating? Because you're getting married? Are you a mom? Are you a dad? Are you the oldest, the youngest, the middle? Who are you? Yeah, Peter's the mom. No. Yeah. What do you let define you? If that's gone, is there anything left? Well, I don't care how the show answers that question, because we know the answer to that question. So much of our life, so much of my life, I've spent thinking, who I am is what I do. But the truth is, what I do is based on who I am. Now, Jesus said, you will know the tree by its fruit. What fruit are you producing? Are you helping the other trees grow good fruit? Are you poisoning them? There's I think it's a Casting Crown song that they play on the radio that I think is pretty interesting. I think it goes something like, be careful little ears what you hear, be careful little mouth what you say, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on, and it gets to the chorus, and maybe one of you can help me, but I think it says something like, you know, none of the stuff happens in one day, you know? It's a slow fade. People never crumble in a day. It's a slow fade. It's gradual fade. It's just saying stuff every day. It's believing stuff every day. waking up one day and wondering, who am I and who's the person next to me? Am I accurate or inaccurate? I woke up the other day and realized, man, my words have hurt people. I need to go and seek repentance. At the same time, I had to go and figure out, who am I? That I can hurt people like this, that I can do this. And to get some good time in with God. I wanted to close today by reading to you a chapter from the Screwtape Letters. It's one of my favorite chapters of all time. Chapter 14. My dear Wormwood, the most alarming thing in your last account of the patient is that he is making none of those confident resolutions which marked his original conversion. No more lavish promises of perpetual virtue. I gather, not even the expectation of an endowment of grace for life, but only a hope for the daily and hourly pittance to meet the daily and hourly temptation. This is very bad. I see only one thing to do at the moment. Your patient has become humble. Have you drawn his attention to the fact that all virtues are less formidable to us once the man is aware that he has them? But this is especially true of humility. Catch him at the moment when he is really poor in spirit and smuggle into his mind the gratifying reflection, by Jove, I'm being humble. And almost immediately pride at his own humility will appear. If he awakes to the danger and tries to smother this new form of pride, make him proud of his attempt, and so on, through as many stages as you please. But don't try this too long, for fear you awake his sense of humor and proportion, in which case he will merely laugh at you and go to bed. But there are other profitable ways of fixing his attention on the virtue of humility. By this virtue, as by all the others, our enemy wants to turn the man's attention away from self to him and to the man's neighbors. All the abjection and self-hatred are designed in the long run solely for this end. Unless they attain this end, they do us little harm, and they may even do us good if they keep the man concerned with himself, and above all, if self-contempt can be made the starting point for contempt of other selves, and thus for gloom and cynicism and cruelty. You must therefore conceal from the patient the true end of humility. Let him think of it not as a self-forgetfulness, but as a certain kind of opinion, namely a low opinion, of his own talents and character. Some talents, I gather, he really has. Fix in his mind the idea that humility consists in trying to believe those talents to be less valuable than he believes them to be. No doubt they are, in fact, less valuable than he believes, but that is not the point. The great thing is to make him value an opinion for some quality other than truth. Thus introducing an element of dishonesty and make-believe into the heart of what otherwise threatens to become a virtue. By this method, thousands of humans have been brought to think that humility means pretty women trying to believe they are ugly and clever men trying to believe they are fools. And since what they are trying to believe may in some cases be manifest nonsense, they cannot succeed in believing it, and we have the chance of keeping their minds endlessly revolving on themselves in an effort to achieve the impossible. To anticipate the enemy's strategy, we must consider his aim. The enemy wants to bring the man to a state of mind in which he could design the best cathedral in the world and know it to be the best, and rejoice in the fact without being any more or less or otherwise glad at having done it than he would be if it had been done by another. The enemy wants him in the end to be so free from any bias in his own favor that he can rejoice in his own talents as frankly and gratefully as in his neighbor's talents, or in a sunrise, an elephant, or a waterfall. He wants each man in the long run to be able to recognize all creatures, even himself, as glorious and excellent things. He wants to kill their animal self-love as soon as possible. But it is his long-term policy, I fear, to restore to them a new kind of self-love, a charity and gratitude for all selves, including their own. When they have really learned to love their neighbors as themselves, they will be allowed to love themselves as their neighbors. For we must never forget what is the most repellent and inexplicable trait in our enemy. He really loves the hairless bipeds he has created and always gives back to them with his right hand what he has taken away with his left. His whole effort, therefore, will be to get the man's mind off the subject of his own value altogether. He would rather the man thought of himself as a great architect or a great poet and then forget about it, than that he should spend much time and pains trying to think himself a bad one. Your efforts to instill either vainglory or false modesty in the patient will therefore be met from the enemy's side with the obvious reminder that a man is not usually called upon to have an opinion of his own talents at all, since he can very well go on improving them to the best of his ability without deciding on his own precise niche in the temple of fame. You must try to exclude the reminder from the patient's consciousness at all costs. The enemy will also try to render real in the patient's mind a doctrine which they all profess but find it difficult to bring home to their feelings. The doctrine that they did not create themselves, that their talents were given them, and that they might as well be proud of the color of their hair. And I really am proud of the color of my... Anyway. But always, and by all methods, the enemy's aim will be to get the patient's mind off such questions. And yours will be to fix it on them. Even on his sins, the enemy does not want him to think too much. Once they are repented, the sooner the man turns his attention outward, the better the enemy is pleased. It's a heavy chapter, I think. It has a lot of truth. It's powerful. It's all about humility. And God told us, what he desires of us, but to walk humbly with our God and to love mercy and other things. And I could sing a song for you right now, but I won't. Micah 6:8. He has shown... No, okay. The reason I read that to you is because that has helped me so much deal with my passion for competition. I won't be here, unfortunately, but I would like to be able to see them wed and to take an incredible amount of joy in that. Joy that I also took in my own way. I would like, when I go and play soccer with you, to take a lot of joy when one of you scores a goal and when I score a goal, and not be angry when you're doing well, but be grateful that you're doing well, that you're able to run and play. I would like to look at each one of you and praise God for the gloriousness that he has put in you and see the goodness that he sees. And not tear down the things that he's trying to build. We can take joy in one another's accomplishments as we take joy in our own. And when we do, it will spur us on helping one another and make more and more of those great accomplishments. And that isn't to downplay who we are. That's to appreciate finally and truly who we are. Because when we understand who we are, then we realize, I have something that I want to give away. Just like Jesus Christ, and he really understood who he was, which was always. He was able to give himself away for you. What can you give to each other? Let's pray. God, we are humbled by the fact that you are perfect and you put up with us. Nonsense. You put up with our weakness. You put up with the fact that we're not as strong as we think we are, and we often get confused and think we're quite a bit stronger than we really are, and yet you love us. You died for us. You let us spit on you and punch you in the face. You let us put thorns on your head, nail you to a tree, and call you the devil. And you didn't condemn us to hell for that. You went to hell instead, just because you loved us. What a great example, God. Please let us take that example with us today. As we go on, as we hear things said about us that may not be true, let we hear your truth about us, and let that be what tells us who we are. And let that be someone that becomes your hands and feet to give back to a world that so desperately needs you. In Jesus' name, amen.